Hello and welcome back to LARP School, and today we'll be looking at weapons checking. Yes, hello, welcome back. As I said, today we'll be looking over weapons checking. This is just a basic tutorial-ish kind of thing on how you can check your weapons, make sure they're all safe, make sure they're all dandy. Before you even take them along to a LARP event, because there's nothing worse than bringing along a weapon to an event and it then sort of getting weapons checked and being failed, and then you've got no weapons. Always a bit awkward, especially if you're a giant orc who carries a massive axe and you don't have an axe. Ooh. So I've got two swords here. I don't have any axes or anything, but the procedure's pretty much identical. I'll start with this one for the pure and simple fact that it does have a hilt as well. So there are a few things that you want to look for straight away. Obviously, if it's sort of gone crooked, probably means the core's broken. Don't even bother taking it. What you want to do for the hilt is basically you want to first of all get a nice grip, feel the foam, make sure it is soft-ish and gives way. If it's rock solid, that's just going to be painful. You also want to twist, so with two hands sort of twist it either way, up and down the shaft, and that just basically what you're doing there is making sure the foam isn't coming away from the core itself. On the tip as well, you want to sort of push and feel around, make sure you can't feel the core being exposed around the top, because there's nothing worse than going to hit someone and if you're stabbing with this, even though it's not stab safe, you shouldn't be doing that. You don't really want the core to sort of come through and stab someone. Not good. You also want to do pretty much the same thing for the handle as well. You want to sort of twist on the handle, make sure that the grip's good, so when you're swinging the sword it doesn't sort of want to give way and then sort of twist itself while you're going to hit someone. It's never fun. On the bottom of the sword, again, you just want to sort of push down, feel around, see if you can make sure you don't feel the core. Again, for the same reason as the top, you don't want the core to slip through. Just make sure there's generally good padding there. So far, so good for all of this. And the hilt as well. The hilts so much are a bit awkward because they will sort of give way, but they're designed to give way. You just want to make sure that there's nothing sort of solid in there. It is basically just the foam. So if it does get hit, you're not going to get hit with sort of some metal or anything like that. And yeah, this is a perfect pass on the critical aspects of that. For critical, basically all you're looking for is the foam soft? So is it made out of a foam that you can LARP with this? Absolutely. Is it all intact? So is the core still in place perfectly? Yes, it is. Is the core damaged in any way? From what I can feel here, no, it's not, although generally it will show it will sort of be quite obvious, because as I say, normally if a core does snap, what will happen is the weight will sort of drag it down slightly, so you would see sort of a slight bend down like that. It won't be a big one, but you will notice. What you can do as well to test the core is basically sort of hit it like that and just basically see if the core sort of comes loose. You want a nice solid structure throughout the weapon, and here it's nice and solid. So yeah, critical aspects, they're the main ones to look for. Also for axes, what you'd be looking for is obviously the connections between the chord area and the non-chord area. Is it all intact? Are there any sort of cracks that are forming or tears? If there are tears forming, depending on the size, if it's a small one, it may get away. If you've obviously sort of lost half of the grip to the weapon, that probably will be failed, simply because you may lose the axe head at any moment with a strike, and then you're just left basically with sort of a chord area, which isn't good. So they're things to look out for critically. Now, there are advisories as well. Advisories you can still fight with, but as it would suggest, it's advice basically to get this changed. The biggest thing in this category that you may come across or be advised on will be with the latex itself. So if the latex is starting to feel sticky, that generally means that it may start being worn away. The weapon really basically sort of hasn't been looked after properly. So it's basically just an advisory to sort of lubricate it, as is mentioned in the looking after your weapons video. And that should bring it back to how it should be. You may also get that some of the latex is peeling away. So what would be recommended is getting it re-latexed. Now for that it is easy enough. You may be able to do it yourself. However, for a good job that mixes in, generally the hardest part about it is matching up the paints. So the paint sort of looks similar and uniform throughout. And all the place you normally find this is on the tips. And that is because the thing that pees me off the most is most definitely tips being dug into grounds. Now you may not be able to obviously control this if you're falling down, but the amount of people that I do see sort of walking around with their, well, not walking around, but standing there with their weapon tips on the ground peeves me to no end. And if they are borrowing my weapons, I go over and tell them straight away. Because I don't say it in a mean or cruel way either. I just say, you know, shouldn't ever leave a weapon on its tip. Now on this end, you know, fair enough, that's fine, that's not a hitting surface. You really shouldn't ever put these or leave these sort of on the ground, but with the bottom I don't really care as much, that's fine. With the tops I definitely care. It's a striking surface, you're probably going to rip the foam off because there is no support here. So latexing is probably going to be the biggest advisory that you will get. You may get an advisory as well on the handle, so if the handle is slightly loose, so it does have a bit of play to it, so the grip, I mean, then you may obviously be advised to either, if it's like this one, get it re-wrapped. If it's sort of a separate piece, then it may just be the glue or adhesive that they used to stick it down, and may just basically be sort of a re-stick to stick it back down, and that's all fine. Generally with weapons, if you do look after them right and you know how to treat them, you shouldn't get any advisories or failures, which is always good, and a light weapon is designed to last a long time. These swords have now been in use and been played with for the last, oh blimey, for nearly 10 years now. So, and there's another 12 of these types of swords that we have as well, and they've been in play for the last 10 years, and the only thing that we've ever needed to do, because they have been looked after very well, they've been kept out of sunlight, everything like that, is they needed the tips re-latexed on the majority of them, and that was because with these swords we do sort of free classes for kids, basically learning how to sword fight. Much better give them a LARP sword than a metal sword. So that's why we sort of done that. There have been a couple that did break, and this is a thing that sort of comes under the storage as well. And they did have hilts similar to this, slightly larger ones. They were slightly different swords, but pretty much the same build. And what happened with them is all of them were stored together, and they weren't sort of kept lubricated. So what happened is the foam and the latex got sticky. It started sticking to the bag it was kept in, and to the other weapons as well. And basically, it pretty much just ripped the hilt off from the sword, just where it had been sort of in storage for a while, not being used and not being looked after. So if you ever have sort of a year where you're not going to be LARPing, and let's face it, that can happen to anyone, I would always recommend still sort of halfway through the year, just check up on the weapons, see how they're feeling. Are they still smooth? Are they feeling slightly tacky? And if they are, take the appropriate steps to basically lubricate and keep it well. So for the next time you are out next year, then you're not going to need to worry about needing to get repairs done. Generally at LARP events there will be weapons traders and that sort of thing. They may offer sort of repair services as well, so what you can always do is if a sword does get an advisory, I'm sure you'll be able to take it to any of the weapons traders. I would almost certainly think that somebody would have sort of a weapons repair shop and get it repaired whilst you're playing the game, and then it can come back in. And normally as well with the weapons traders, I would normally expect them to be weapons check trained as well, so they'd be able to let you know straight away that it is safe. And with weapons checks as well, it's always recommended to do them every day. So every day that you're on site, every time that you are in the game, it's always recommended for a check to happen. Now the games team would normally get this through. So normally it would just be sort of spot checks. You'd have the first major check before the game starts to make sure everyone's weapons are fine, and then the odd spot check here and there on weapons throughout the weekend. And that's basically just a safety standpoint to make sure that the games team is basically doing all they can to look after the players and make sure that their safety is, you know, upheld, so to speak. So that's weapons checking. It's nice and simple. I'd recommend doing it, depending obviously if you've got lots of weapons, I'd recommend sort of doing them all together in bulk whilst you're at home. So, and do it sort of twice a year or before you pack the weapon to take. So just check over those things, make sure it's safe before you even take it out, and then you know. There's nothing worse than going to an event with a weapon, not knowing that it's actually broken or damaged, getting there and then not having a weapon for the weekend. So that's why I put together this quick video. It is nice and quick. It doesn't need to be a long drawn out process inspecting every element. It's a nice general quick check to make sure that the weapon's safe to use. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any other tips, by all means put them down in the comments below. And until the next time, take care and goodbye for now.